Dreading going to work tomorrow? At least you're not trapped in space all alone with a giant alien trying to eat you. Hey there, welcome to another edition of the Sunday Scaries. I'm your host, Mike, and today I'm excited to be talking to you about the movie Alien. This is one of my favorite movies, and it's an all-time sci-fi horror movie classic. I will be doing spoilers today, so please, if you are interested in this movie at all, stop what you're doing, go watch it. This is such a terrific movie. I highly recommend it. With that said, if you still are interested in knowing what happens in this movie and hearing some of my thoughts before you watch it, continue. But I highly recommend whether you watch it before you listen to my review or after, I highly recommend you watch this movie. It's an all-time classic. So giving you a little bit of background about the movie Alien, or a refresher for those who have seen it. Alien takes place in the future, and it's really the not so distant future. I believe it's 2032 or something around that area. And in the future, people travel through space, and it's kind of blue-collared work. There's different missions going on. We're colonizing planets, and in the movie there's a space mission going on. In this future, people, they put themselves to sleep while they're traveling through space, and they wake up when they're ready to be at the planet or the location that they're at. And so the space mission is coming back from a blue-collar job, and they wake up early, and they're notified by the ship, which has some sort of AI technology in it, that they got some type of signal indicating that there might be a life form out there. And up until this point, humans still have not found life on other planets. So they're required contractually to go investigate. They do, and they have a team of both like engineers and scientists and pilots, all sorts of different people with different roles. And they go out and find this destroyed alien spaceship. They find a dead alien on the spaceship, and underneath the cockpit there's this big room, and there's all these eggs in it, and one of the eggs hatches and opens up, and the monster attaches itself to one of the characters' faces. They bring the character back to the ship. They break protocol. There's all these different things going on. They try getting this life form off his face. They try cutting it. It's got acid for blood. There's not much they can do about it. And so they wait, and the person wakes up, and after a short while, this alien explodes out of his chest. It's this giant monster. Well, it starts out little and it quickly grows, but it becomes this giant monster and starts stalking the crew one by one and trying to kill them. And that's the general plot of this movie. Now, the film is done terrifically. It was directed by Ridley Scott. This is one of his earliest films that he did, and he's just brilliant, great as far as just creating this environment where you really feel like you're in space. It's fun, it's adventurous, it's beautiful, even though it's dark, and it's got a great cast of characters. You have everybody from the funny, like engineers or janitor type characters, particularly Parker is hilarious. You have the stoic captain in Dallas. You have the brainy scientist and Ash. The lead is played by Sigourney Weaver, and she plays the character Ripley. And it's just a terrific group of characters that you really care about, and you're really interested in watching what happens as the movie goes on. And this is the first movie in a long franchise that's been going on. There's 8 movies, and I'll be doing reviews on all 8 of them. And there's a new one actually coming out, so I'll have all the reviews done by August in preparation for the 8th one. But one of the things that kind of stands out throughout the series is Ripley. She's kind of the heart and soul of the series. Even in the movies that she's not in, there's little nods to her character and just someone kind of being like her, just different things. So Ripley is a really, really important character in the series. And it's great that we had such a great actress playing her. And I believe she's continuing to play her in the new movie. Don't quote me. I haven't done a lot of research on it. I try to go into movies as blind as possible, but I believe I heard a rumor about that. I'm not going to get into all the technical reasons why this is such a great movie, and it's completely well done, but I do want to focus on a few themes. Just because so much has been said about just the art of this film, and I'm just going to stick to a few themes. And the first theme I want to focus on, and this is in relation to horror as a whole, I love that horror does the same thing over and over again in different atmospheres. And when you really look at this movie, this really isn't that different than a poltergeist or a movie that has a haunted house. And I always call this movie the haunted house in outer space, because once the alien gets out, it's hiding and you don't know where it is, and everything in the spaceship becomes scary. You're not sure what's gonna happen. It creates so much suspense, and it's a dark movie. The spaceship is darkly lit. There's different things going off all over the place to give jump scares, but it's really neat in this movie and just in horror in general how you can kind of have the same scary premise but just change locations, and it's really the same thing, but it's just done in a little bit different way. And this really is, like I said, a haunted house in outer space at its core once the monster comes out. The second really interesting theme is too much government control, or the government trying to manipulate situations. And you know, as the movie goes on, it comes out that the computer program in the ship was actually pre-programmed before they launched the mission to go to this location. And the government actually sent this crew unknowingly to them that they were gonna go get this alien life form and they wanna bring it back and, you know, use it for some kind of weapons project. On top of that, and again, spoilers, there's a character named Ash in it, and the whole time he's kind of being weird. He's this brainiac scientist. He's undermining the crew and making decisions that kind of are questionable. And it turns out that Ash isn't actually a person. He's actually a robot. He's artificial intelligence, and he actually attacks one of the crew members, Ripley. Turns out he was actually programmed and put on the ship to make sure that the mission succeeded, that the alien life form would get back to Earth and be able to be studied for a weapons program. He pretty much tells the crew once he's outed that they're expendable, and so does the AI ship once they get access to it. There's this interesting theme that the government doesn't always have our best interests and they're just greedy. And even when you look at the crew and the ship, they're all really blue collar workers and they're there to get paid. And the whole reason they decide to go, there's a clause in their contract that if they do not investigate a potential alien life form, that they'll lose all their pay. And that at the core, that's why they're there, right? Is to make money. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, because sometimes you do things in your jobs that you don't necessarily want to do. They're not in the best interest of your family or you personally or for your health, but you're doing it because you want to do a good job at your job and you want to make sure you get paid at the end of the day. Another theme that I find really interesting is the eeriness of outer space and being trapped on a ship with this monster and being completely alone. You're millions and millions of miles away from Earth, right? There's no people out there to help you. There's nothing you can do. And that like loneliness, it just creeps with you throughout the movie and even after the movie's over and the way it ends. You know, it's a really interesting theme, and Ridley Scott and the writers did such a good job of utilizing that. On top of that, I do gotta give one technical credit in the way that they filmed this movie. It's a lot like the film Jaws, where the monster is used sparingly. It's not a movie where the alien is just in your face the whole time, creeping around, you don't see it, and it gets people, sometimes even not on camera. And that use of film technique is so horrifying when done correctly, and Ridley Scott does a great job with that. I love the final girl in this movie, Ripley. I know I already touted the performance and what a great character she is, but in 1979, horror movies all typically had a final girl, and typically the final girl is a little bit more helpless. And in this movie, Ripley, she's a badass. The whole time things are going on, of course she gets scared, but she's not some helpless damsel in distress. She's trying to figure out, how do we get rid of this monster? Even before the aliens on the ship, you know, there's this protocol, and she's fighting with Ash, who she does not know is an android at the time, about not letting him on the ship and breaking protocol. It's very clear she's comfortable being a leader, but also she's a survivor. And as the film goes on and people die one by one and Ripley becomes alone, she doesn't just freak out. She figures out how to handle the monster. She blows up the government ship, which is very, very expensive, and they'll get into in the next film. You know, she's not afraid to do what she needs to do to survive. And not in a selfish way, but in a courageous way. And she doesn't break down even when everything seems hopeless for her. And as the series goes on, you appreciate Ripley more and more. And some of the films in this series are a little bit weaker, but when Ripley's in it, you still just love her character. And the series is worth a watch just for her character. And then the last theme that I really want to focus on, and I think is really prevalent in today's world, is this idea that artificial intelligence can be so dangerous and potentially essentially completely control our lives. In general, electronics, they're a necessity in our lives, right? We all have phones, we all have cars. We depend on different things, computers, to do our everyday jobs, to get to work, whatever it might be, we're dependent on technology. And in this film, you have a computer that's running this ship that's completely in charge of protecting them. And because it was programmed by the government to do a specific thing, it does not have human life as its #1 interest or protecting the people that are traveling on board it. And then you also have this artificial intelligence in Ash who programmed to make sure this mission gets accomplished. You can tell he has no care for human life or the people around him. He has no emotional connection. Yet he's so terrifying too because he is artificial intelligence and he kind of has free will in the sense of he can get his mission done in any way he wants. It's not like he's programmed to do it a specific way. And when you watch this film, you can't help but wonder, man, is it a good idea to be so dependent on technology? Is it a good idea to have artificial intelligence and really these things running our lives? And it's something to ponder because especially now we're entering 2024 and AI is at the forefront, I feel like, of every field and conversations, and it's definitely a reality now more than it ever has been. And so it'll be interesting to see how it develops. But this film, which is made in 1979, is projecting a future that's only like 8 years away from where we are now. And it's interesting because we're pretty much almost there. This movie makes you question just how much we should really allow these robots and these machines to be influencing our lives and doing jobs. And one final theme that's always interesting in any of these alien movies to consider is just, if we do find life on other planets, it might not be good. And the alien life form we find in this movie is completely animalistic, got no logic or reasoning other than to exist and reproduce and kill and eat. And, it just makes you wonder, like, should we really be looking for extraterrestrial life forms? Now, getting into the rankings here, this is one of the best films ever made, in my opinion. And it's interesting in this franchise, and I'll get into this in the next Alien series review, but this first film and the second movie, Aliens, which have two completely different tones, are kind of either you're a team Alien or a team Aliens person. I personally love both films. I do have my preferences, which I'll get into eventually, especially once I do a ranking video on this series after the new movie comes out. But regardless of which one you prefer, this is a terrific film. This is a 5 out of 5 as far as how well done it was. Now, on the fun scale, a little bit different. It is a little bit of a slower movie, though you're interested in the world around you as it's developing. The Alien really takes about, I think, 30-ish to 40 minutes to get into the film. It's almost a 2-hour movie, so it's not like you get right into the action. With that said, I give it a 4 out of 5 on the fun meter. It's still a really entertaining film. It does take a little bit of time to develop, but again, you're completely interested in the world around you as they're developing. Thank you again for tuning into this week's edition of the Sunday Scaries. I really appreciate your time in watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel and ding the bell so you don't miss any notifications. And all I know is I'm glad I don't gotta fight an alien tomorrow in outer space.